Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Pranzata podcast. This is episode number 25, and as you can see, I have a guest today. This is my friend Josh Wells. He is in the stand-up comedy community of New Jersey / New York City. He is, how many years have you been performing?
Like 11 or 12.
Yeah, so he is like, he knows what he's doing. They refer to him as the big dog. Like, so I would imagine like you've had to do some pretty decent stuff to get the name as the big dog. So I got some questions for him today. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit like, and don't forget to comment on anything as we go along in the podcast. I hate to badger you guys, but a lot of times I'll get like DMs on Instagram saying like, hey, I loved your podcast, but that doesn't help. Put them down below here, and that's it. So here we go. Josh Wells, episode number 25, Pranzata podcast. So I have a bunch of questions for you.
Cool.
First, let's cheers.
Cheers, yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Debatable if I know what I'm doing, but I appreciate it.
Well, I have a bunch of comedy questions, so I guess we're all going to find out if you know what you're doing. Or
flattering intro. I hope I earn it, or I still get to keep that intro once this is finished.
Well, they do call him the big dog. Like whenever I go to those things, they're like, he's one of the big dogs. And like you guys made a joke once at another open mic where it was like, there's only 3 big dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like this whole big dog thing.
Yeah.
My friend Mark Henley called me a big dog at his mic once.
Yeah.
But then Mark Henley became a big dog, and now there's like a few big dogs.
Yeah, I've been trying to be a big dog for like, I've only been in the game for like 9 months.
But you want to be a big dog?
I've been trying to be a big dog. I don't know how to become one, but
I just gotta own it. You know? You gotta go up there and be like, I am a big dog.
So my first question for you, I want to let you know that when I first met you, my first impression of you was that I was scared of you, and I wanted to tell you that, so I thought
Can I ask you why? Like, what about me is scary? Because like this is interesting to me. Like I want to know.
I'm curious. Well, my question is like I'm wondering if other people say the same thing or if it was just me. I just got the impression that, and I don't think that at all now. I think you're really super friendly. I don't think you're like a big dog. You're like a big cat.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm a cat person.
Yeah,
and I feel like I have the personality of a cat. I like to take naps. And,
like you're like a friendly person. But when I first met you, you just had like a serious face, and I felt like it was like hard to have a conversation. I was like, he hates me. And I'm like wondering if you give that impression to other people or if it was just me.
I think, I don't know, like there's like 2 different things I think about this. Like I get a lot of people tell me that like, oh, Josh, he's a nice guy and this and that, which is like, that's actually hard to hear a lot because when everyone's like, you're such a nice guy, you almost start like walking on eggshells.
Like being an asshole.
I don't want to be an asshole tonight and ruin my whole nice guy reputation. Because everybody has like a streak of asshole in them, right?
Yeah.
But also, I do think that like I'm very like weird around new people that I've never met before. I think I'm shy, but like
socially anxious or something.
Yeah, like it's pretty much just shyness, I think. But I wrap it up in like this packaging and like, I have like this. I kind of have this look like one of my friends told me once. He's like, you look like a roadie for any rock and roll band. So it's like I got the beard. I usually have like a black shirt on or something.
Yeah.
Some kind of pant wear with tears in it or rips or something. So it's like. Tattoos. I get it. I guess that I could.
It's not even. I mean, I have tattoos also. It's just, and actually, funny. People say the same thing about me. Like people say, like when I first met you, I thought you were such a bitch until I got to know you because I have like resting bitch face when I meet new people as well. But yeah, when I first met you, I was like, he doesn't like me.
I definitely have a scowl. And
you have resting bitch face also. Resting male bitch face.
I'm a male bitch on the outside, but on the inside, I'm a marshmallow.
That's what you're like. What I like to call a gentle giant. That's what I call you.
Yeah. That sounds fitting. I could, yeah.
So my next question, I ask this to not every single guest, but the majority of my guests. I asked it to Tim Rager, actually. Shout out to Tim Rager. He was on this podcast. I always ask this self-awareness question. It's a little bit intense.
I like it. Let's do it. Let's get intense. What
is a current trait that you possess right now that is holding you back in some kind of way from being the best you could be?
Oh, self-confidence. I have a very questionable self-confidence. I'm probably harder on myself than that. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there who hates me more than myself, but like I could be so hard on myself. If you could throw like imposter syndrome in there. Like I get that shit all the time. I'll be like, I don't belong here. am I really funny? Look at all these other funny people.
But the thing is, I feel like most good artists have that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the ones who are like, I'm the best, like they're never the best. And I feel like a lot of, because I listen to a lot of comic podcasts and musician podcasts, and they all say the same exact thing. They're always like, oh, I fucked this up. I always see every flaw in everything I do. And I'm the same way, even like with music recordings. Like when I'm in the middle of recording something, like I'll hear every single flaw. Like, oh, I fucked this up. I fucked that up. And then like 2 years later, I'll listen to it and be like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Like,
Yeah.
So.
I compare it to like tattoos. When you get a tattoo, sometimes like you look at your tattoos. Well, if they're in a place you could look at, like on your arm, you look at it all the time, especially when it's new. So you might see like an inconsistency in a line or something.
Dude, I'm going through that right now.
Right. And it just bugs the ever-loving shit out of you.
Yeah.
And you just think that's all that anybody else can see, but nobody else cares.
No, nobody else can
is looking
see
at your
it.
tattoo and judging like this one uneven line or whatever.
Right now, I'm like, I just got coloring done, and like the flower healed really weird, and I'm like, it looks like a big blob, like, but I go through the same exact thing.
You're
it's
the
like,
only person who pays enough attention to it to
like
even
the fine
realize
details.
that. And it's the same with comedy. Like a joke cannot hit or a joke can bomb, but you're gonna put way more focus on that joke than anybody else is. Anybody watching it,
At the end of the day, people are selfish human beings. So like ourselves included, everybody's selfish. So like at worst, they might be like, "Well, that sucked," and then they're just gonna go about their day and like never think of you ever again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like,
they just go on to their next thought, which is probably about them and one of their tattoos or something. Like, I think we're all just walking around.
Like they could be in the middle of the show, like thinking like, oh, is the guy or girl next to me? Do they like me? Like they're not even like paying attention or whatever, Right.
Just dealing with their own self-conscious issues while it's like, that's all any of us are ever doing. We're all just like in rooms together being self-conscious and trying to mask it.
But are you a people watcher? Like on top of being self-conscious, I feel like comedians would have to kind of be people watchers and to some degree to like find stuff to joke about.
Yeah, I mean, I am a people watcher. Like I have this like, it's like I don't know, like a moral, I don't know, like I just have this like moral thing where I'm like, oh, you shouldn't stare at people. You shouldn't look at people. That's not cool. Like I don't want people looking at me when like I don't know it.
Yeah.
But I'm guilty of staring at people. It's,
I'm like a big time people watcher. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I feel like I creep people out because of it, but at the same time, this is the best era to people watching because everyone's on their phone, so you can just like But then it's kind of boring too. But
it's almost like insane, like just how everyone's just kind of neck down or whatever, like everywhere you go, it's wild. And they're probably just on their phone looking at a person. You're looking at that person, look at a person on their phone.
Looking at a person, looking at a person.
Yeah, it's just an infinite loop.
I used to love watching people play Pokemon Go. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
I used to people watch that. I was like fascinated by it because they were just like so into it. Like
they were
I gotta get my catch, like, and they were just like all over the place. And like it like from the outside perspective, it was like this is like this guy's version of like getting food for his family. Like, it was just like fun to watch people do that.
I mean, I was doing comedy at the time. You'd be like at a spot telling jokes, and people were like, "This is a good spot for such and such Pokemon." Like,
were they talking about it? It probably got old after a while.
Oh yeah, it was like internet dating at open mics for a while. Like everyone was talking about it. People were doing it while you were telling jokes. It was just like of all the things I've seen people get hooked on their phone, that was like incredible. It had so much power over the people who were doing it, I felt.
Are there any jokes right now in the comedy scene that are getting annoying? Like, are the COVID jokes getting annoying? Because you're out a lot more than I am, so I'm like curious. Do you see like a pattern? Like, oh, I've heard this fucking thing. Like,
yeah, like comics joking about I don't know whether to shake your hand or fist bump you or whatever, and like trying to make a joke out of it, and it's like, yeah, we've heard that before, A funny thing was during the pandemic, I was like telling jokes through the whole thing, like for better or for worse, maybe I made some questionable decisions, but I was always out there telling jokes, and you would see comics come back in waves. And when they would come back, they would all kind of have like the same thought that the last wave of comics had. You know what I'm saying? And it's stuff like that. It's, do I shake your hand or do we bump fists? Wasn't that lockdown crazy? Making bread or whatever. And you'd be like, yeah, okay, But I get it because it's new to them.
Yeah. I think parallel thinking is like a pretty common thing in comedy. Like personally myself, there's been times where I'm like, oh, this would be a good joke, and I'll see either like another comic do it that night sometimes, or like I'll even see sometimes like a comic on TV already did it. So it's like we're all having similar thoughts. You've got to get it or somebody else will.
Yeah,
you know?
we're all thinking the same thing, right? Especially when it comes to something like a pandemic. Topical issues. I tell other comics, I'm like, if you come up with a topical joke and you think it's original, just log into Twitter, just do a little scrolling for like 5-10 minutes. You'll probably find somebody that comes very close to whatever your thought is. Whatever, like right now it would be, I guess, like the Afghanistan war coming to an end or whatever.
Yeah.
Every comic that's tweeting about it, there's probably like 10 joke archetypes you can go with that, and they're all just saying
there's probably a bunch of people that aren't even comics, like on the internet, like making memes and shit, like just like someone's aunt, like, you know what I mean? It's probably like having similar thoughts, you know? So
which is crazy because you'll see a comic tell a joke at a mic or something, and the next day you'll see some rando, not a comic, just post a meme, and you're like, oh, there you go, that joke's dead. It's out there in the ether now.
Do you think there's too many comics out there now?
I don't know if there's too many. I don't ever want to like put a limit on anything. Like if people want to be comics, I say do it. I'd hate to ever be in the way of somebody chasing a passion.
Be like, don't chase it because I'm the one.
Yeah. I don't want to be selfish. Like, this is my road. Get out of my way. There's a lot of comics. I think that, social media has opened up a lot of different lanes for it, especially with Zoom comedy during the pandemic. People blowing up on Twitter. They're not even stand-up comics. Maybe they get a following. Then they get, somebody convinces them to go on a stage and try to recreate their Twitter comedy on the stage. So it's out there. I don't discourage it, though. To each their own. I think everyone should just do what they love. So
I'm kind of curious, like, what the future of comedy will even be. Like, in the stand-up, like, there's always going to be whatever, TikTok and YouTube comics and stuff like that. But, like, I'm kind of curious, like, I thought we were done with the pandemic, and now like the Delta thing is coming along, and like I know as of now, like, you need a vaccine card to get into places, which is fine. I just like burped in the microphone, which is like fine for me.
A professional broadcast.
I literally burp on like every single podcast because I'm usually having like seltzer or beer or something, and usually
waiting for this to devolve into drunk history, basically.
I'm okay with like the vaccine card thing, but I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be closures again, because I'm already hearing people talk about it, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to expect anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of closing down again, because we've been there. Now we know it's like, oh, that is a thing that could happen. Like that, someone could push that button and make it so. I definitely think that we're going to see venues, and this is not just comedy, music, and whatever else, all of other forms of live entertainment. I think they're all going to opt to go vaccine first. They're like, proof of vaccination to get in before they go with shutting down, because they were not making money for months, and now they're making money again. They're going to hold on to that as
they have to survive somehow.
As long as they can, I think.
They got to fucking eat their lunch. I'm actually, as a musician, I'm actually okay with online stuff personally. I find like more joy in writing music than I do performing music, and you can write a song and record it and put it out on the internet.
Right.
But with comedy, it's like
you need the immediate reaction. That's what makes stand-up comedy go.
Yeah.
And even on Zoom, like, it's kind of hard to get that.
Yeah. Have you ever done a Zoom one?
Yeah. I did a few, and they were okay, but it's just not the same. It's not as fun. It definitely feels like a watered down version of stand-up comedy. Once again, it's another thing that I don't discourage anyone from doing. If we shut down again, I'll definitely give it another go. But
I've never done it before. I was always like too proud to do it. Like, I was like, no, that's stupid. But like, I guess at the end, who could I blame? Like, at the end of the day, if there's no other way to do it, people are just trying to do their passion, I guess, I mean, I remember when the shutdown first happened, the first time I heard about a Zoom mic, I couldn't wait, because I was going to be able to see all my friends. Like, that first shutdown beat me up, man. The first 3 weeks, I wasn't even like writing anymore. There was all this stuff going on. I couldn't even write, because like I was just so, I don't know, I just shut down creatively. And then when like somebody was like, hey, we're going to do an open mic, but do it on Zoom, I was like, let's go. I don't care if I have nothing. Like, I just want to be around comics, even if it's like in a virtual way. So it has its place, and it's it helped during the lockdown, I thought. What actually, this is a good segue, because I was going to ask you this. you were saying how like you didn't feel good when you weren't able to do comedy. I'm kind of curious like how you got started in comedy to begin with, like because it seems like this is obviously a passion for you. I see you out there all the time, but you didn't start till like in your 30s, right?
Yeah, well, I'm like, about 29, 30. What had happened was I'd like always been a fan of stand-up comedy, and maybe somewhere in the back of my head I thought maybe I could be a stand-up comic, but it was always a maybe. It was like, I don't know if I really got what it takes. I messed around with improv for a while. I took some classes at UCB. Loved level 1. As soon as level 2 came around, it got more serious. I was like, this isn't as fun. I still tried level 3, and I was like, I don't think improv's my thing. So I kind of dropped out from that. And then like I kind of didn't try anything for a while. I have a bunch of friends though, a bunch of musician friends, and they were starting an open mic at a bar in my neighborhood. Shout out to the Wild Rover in Guttenberg, New Jersey. And they were like, "Hey, we're gonna start this open mic. You have no musical talent. Why don't you host it?" You know? And I was into it. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna try to write some jokes. You know, I'm gonna try to write some jokes and host this thing." So like, my first experiences with stand-up was like running a show. It's like,
holy shit! Like, so you got like a really good start then. Like,
that's well, no, it was brutal. It was awful. It was an open mic that was like, we had a lot of fun, and there were some good nights, but there were a lot of bad nights, a lot of painful nights. And I was a new comic, so like I was very not funny, and I was the host. You know what I'm saying? And it was tough.
It must have been awkward.
And there'd be like a lot of nights where it's like it's a neighborhood bar, so it's like if the Giants are playing a Sunday night game, if the Yankees are in the playoffs,
they're just like, get the fuck out of the way. Like,
they were like, you're really gonna do this now? You know, like they hated us almost. And for a while we would stay out late. It would be like till, you know, we would close the bar down.
Yeah.
So that would like, I wouldn't do comedy anywhere else. I would just do that for like 2 or 3 years. That was all I did. Every now and then I'd go into the city for a mic, but pretty much all I did was host that.
And it was like once a week only.
Yeah. So I never really progressed at a good rate for like the first 2 to 3 years.
It wasn't until you started like going up like every single day.
Right. I just like, I saw a couple mics in Jersey City, which is close to home for me. And I was like, I'm going to start. I just made this promise to myself. There was one on Thursday night. I was like, I'm going to go to this every week, you know, just. And so then also it was like Sunday and Thursday, every week. And slowly but surely, like I got more into it. I started going to other spots. But the best thing that happened to me, even though I loved the Wild Rover open mic so much, we stopped doing it, or I stopped doing it. It just got too much.
That was actually the best thing that happened to
you?
you?
I was staying up till 2 a.m. It was killing me at work. I was like brutal. It was brutal at work. I was just getting too old for it, you know? But also I realized like all of a sudden I had energy on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I started going out and doing comedy on Monday and Tuesdays. And then slowly but surely it became like a 4 or 5 night a week thing.
That's kind of what I'm trying to do with myself now. Like I'm trying to build it up. Like I'm not just going to run out there and do 5 days a week from the get-go. But right now I'm doing like 1 day a week, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready now to take on like 2 days a week. I'm going to pretty much do exactly like what it's kind of like going to the gym in a weird way. It's like, it's like you're like slowly building up the stamina or whatever. I guess for me, like I wouldn't have a problem going up every day. It's because of where I live. It's hard to find mics around here. So it's exhausting to like have to drive all the time, but some people do it. There's this one comedian, Matt Rivera. Do you know Matt Rivera?
Yeah.
He lives like farther than me. Like, cause you know, you drove over here. It was like what, 45 minutes, an hour?
It's like an hour. Yeah.
It's like an hour. There's one that Matt Rivera, he lives even farther. He probably lives an hour and 20 minutes, and he's always up there.
Yeah.
So he does it, you know,
commitment.
So it's yeah. So I'm like, I don't really have an excuse. I just like,
I mean, you do, but you know, it's like, it's wild, you know, like when you start thinking about, oh man, am I really going to drive, you know, almost 3 hours a day? Like I'm doing one, you know, it depends how many mics you're doing, like out for 5 minutes. Like it could be fun, but it could also be discouraging at the same time.
Yeah, especially if like you get up there, no one's listening, everybody's because you know, sometimes at these open mics, like you never know what you're going to get. Like sometimes you have a good open mic, and then sometimes honestly, bar shows are the best. Like I feel like that's always a good experience, because it's like, it's kind of like the first step, I think, to becoming a better comedian, because you're performing for like real audiences and stuff like that. So to me, I love doing bar shows. Like that's always worth it to me, because it's like never a bad experience. But sometimes
really,
I mean, no, never. Let me rephrase that. It's sometimes a horrible experience as far as like bombing and weird things, but it's never a bad experience as far as learning something.
Sure, yeah, that's true. There's
you know what I mean?
To learn from. Yeah, and that's kind of what's cool about comedy is like even when it doesn't go your way or when you have a bad night, like there's things to learn. I sometimes think I've learned more from bad sets than good sets. Like if I have a good set, what do I learn? I'm just like, oh, those jokes work, and then I'll just tell them the same way again the next time it's it's a joke bombing when you're like, I need to fix that joke, or I just need to get rid of it and write a new one.
This is actually one of my questions for you. Do you have a bomb that's you can't get out of your head? Like if you were to think about it,
like
you
my
would
worst
still,
bomb ever?
yeah, like you would still feel the emotions if we talk about
absolutely.
it.
I did like some biker bar on Coney Island, a Russian biker bar in Coney Island. And I didn't drive. It was I took like the subway to get there. So it was like an hour and a half of subway to get to this place. And it was like, I think it was like November. So it wasn't like beautiful Coney Island. It was like, like Coney Island was shut down. So it's just locals. So we go in this place and there's just all these Russian bikers there. And they all have like vests and stuff. And they all know each other.
It's like intimidating.
Yeah, very intimidating. Oh man, it gets so much worse. So we're having a comedy show. And as the show starts, these guys come in and they are not there for comedy. They are there to hang out with each other. They put a bunch of tables together and sit around a table, and it was like Thanksgiving dinner for them. It was just like, it must have been like 15 bikers just hanging out and eating. They were ordering food, eating dinner basically, and having drinks, and they paid attention to nobody. And when I got up there, the bottom fell out. I had a guy come up to me, one of the bikers, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to need you to shut up now. We're going to do a cheers. You got to shut up for like at least 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to go around and say a bunch of things."
You just had to like wait.
and I was kind of like young in the game, and I'm looking at the producer like, what do I do? And the producer's looking at me
just
like,
wait.
I don't know. So like I kind of just like tried to wing it, and like I talked through the whole thing, but it was like, for what? Like nobody. I had never lost a room so bad, and like they were just giving me dirty looks, and
they just like hated your guts.
Yeah, they hated me. And I was like, oh, Russian bikers, I shouldn't piss them off. And as soon as my set was over, I got.
It's funny, like because I was just thinking of you in the beginning of the podcast, how I thought you were so intimidating, but they probably make you look like scraps.
Yeah, and I was scared of them, and they were not scared of me. I know that they were. For a guy to come up to you while you're on the mic and be like, "You need to shut up now," I'm like, wow.
Oh shit!
And it's not like there was a stage. We were like, it's a floor of a bar, so it's like it wasn't any division between us and them.
Russian people can be intimidating. I know some Russian people and they're pretty intense. I have some more comedy questions for you. Oh, okay. This question, I kind of like love it and hate it at the same time. But the reason I'm asking it is because my stepmom, she listens to the podcast. Shout out to my stepmom. She asked me this question one day and I felt stumped for an answer. And I was like, let me just ask my comedian friends and see if they have an answer. So she asked me, why do I even do comedy? What would possess me to do such a thing? And I was kind of like, I don't know how to articulate that. Do you know how to articulate that? Like, why do you do comedy? Is it just like an addiction? Like what, a need to satisfy and make people laugh? Like, what is it for you?
There's definitely there's a validation factor. I mean, the first thing is that I've watched stand-up comedy and I've thought I could do that. Like that looks cool.
Yeah.
Why do people? Why do kids pick up guitars? They see something, they're like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. I mean, that's kind of what happened to me. But then once you get up there, and you start doing it, and you start learning to write jokes, good jokes or whatever, jokes that actually work, and you start getting, a response to it. It feels so good. It's just such it's an empowering feeling. Like, stand-up is like one of these things. It's like we live in this world where like we're all just shouting at each other. No one's really like listening to anyone. But like when you're on stage like doing stand-up comedy, you have the floor, and like people are actually listening. It's kind of like a very rewarding and empowering experience. Right. It's like the only time where like everyone's forced to listen to you, and look, I want to be good during that time, but no matter what, you can't take it away from me. This is my time. I finally get it. Like, and they want to listen too. That's the weird part is like, cause like you were saying in life, like people talk all over each other. Everyone's in their phone, like doing their own thing, but people go to that show and they're listening and they want to know what the hell you have to say because they want to laugh. Strangers, it's almost like you get a certain intimacy from a room of strangers that your best friends and your family can't even provide. I was just talking about this with AJ Sherman. He was on my podcast like a few weeks ago. And shout out to AJ. Yeah, shout out to AJ. Dog Park Commandments. His new song. Check it out. I love the Dog Park Commandments. It was funny. I actually didn't even know that song like already existed. I thought, and I was like, I don't even know that song, and I still thought it was hilarious, which is like a really good thing. That's amazing. But what were we just saying? What the hell? I was just gonna say something, but I can't. Oh, AJ. Okay, he was on the podcast, and we were talking about that thing that you just said. How like
or well, at least he said that he likes when his family comes, but I told him like I feel more comfortable performing in front of a group of strangers than I would with my own family. I would never want my family and friends to see me perform stand up. Music, I would be okay with that. Like I like when my family and friends come see me perform music, but with stand up, it's like these are my weirdest thoughts. Like I don't like I can only tell them to people that I'll never meet again.
It's almost like that's why we do it, because they are strangers in the crowd, right? So it's like they don't know me, so they can judge me, but their judgment doesn't mean anything to me. But the judgment of my friends and my family, that means something to me. So it's like all these deep, weird thoughts that I make jokes out of. Now they're gonna hear that. That being said, I have like some great experiences with like my mom comes to see me every now and then, and I usually have a good set when my mom's in the room. I have a couple jokes at her expense. She loves it. My brother has come out. But
don't you feel more reserved if you talk about like sex or dicks or anything like that?
A little bit. However, I did for my 40th birthday. I did a 40-minute bootleg special on YouTube. I called it Josh Wells 40 for 40. I ended up doing 53 minutes, but at this point, I used my 40th birthday to sucker all my close friends and family to come see me, and I packed the house for one night. You know what I'm saying? Because of my 40th, and I was recording it, and I wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be my best stuff, and I was like, I don't care who's in the room. I got to do if you know. I had this one joke. I have a couple like jokes. I'm not like a very dirty comic, but I had a couple dirty jokes that were just working really well at this point. And I was like, I'm telling them, like, you know, like I'm recording this for posterity. I'm putting them on there. And they were supportive. My girlfriend at the time, her parents were there. They'd never seen me before. They were okay with it. Like, I feel like if you're good, like, and that,
you can kind of get away with saying anything.
Like I'm not trying to be like egotistical, but I had a good night on my 40th birthday. Yeah. Just like everything went my way that night. It was just one of those good nights. And so I think when things are working, your friends and family are into it. When things go bad, it's different. One of my best friends saw me bomb early in comedy for me. And he told me like a couple weeks later, he's like, I'm never going to come see you again. Oh, no. He's like, because it was so hard to watch you struggle up there. And he's like, and I felt uncomfortable in my seat.
I've had people tell me that about music performances, like, because I used to perform classical piano things. And if I had one of my boyfriends came to see me once, and he was like he felt so uncomfortable the whole time because, like, you know, with classical piano, it's just you up there, and it's like really challenging music. So the idea of messing up is so intense. And he was like, the whole time I was shaking, like I didn't want you to mess up. Like he was like, it was really so I know what you're talking about. It's like those close people can like feel it. They're like, oh my god.
Yeah, they feel like the stakes are high for them too. And I get it. Like my brother has done comedy. He's like an improv guy. He's done stand-up a couple times. He opened for me on my 40th birthday, and he killed, by the way. But even that, I was like, oh, I hope he does good, you know? So I get that feeling. Even when like friends in comedy, when they have like a big night, when they're like, I'm headlining here, if I do good, I get passed, or I'm recording a thing. You know, if I go to that, I'm like, oh, I just want him to do well, you know? Like, I can feel it too.
I have a question for you about crowd work. So me personally, as a new comic, that's a territory where I'm terrified of. Like I avoid it like the plague. Yeah. Or I guess like the Delta, we could say now. I avoid it like the Delta.
The variant.
I avoid it like the variant, like the herp. And I'm just like, I know at some point I have to get over the anxiety and over the fear. I've seen you perform, and I think you're very good at crowd work. How did you get good at it? Like, how did you ever have like a fear of it like I do, or were you just like from the beginning you were just more open about it?
In the beginning I was like, fuck crowd work. I came here to tell you, I wrote these jokes. I was like, I wrote them. You're gonna hear these jokes I wrote. But I mean, I just kept finding myself more and more in these situations where I was like, either the jokes aren't working, or there's no way to really work a room unless you start acknowledging things and talking to people in the crowd. And I just like kind of came to this like realization that it's just kind of a weapon that a stand-up comic needs is crowd work. So I like, there was like this one year where I just kind of went hard with it, and I just tried it a lot. And like I just kept challenging myself, and I was awful at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like I still think I'm just a mediocre crowd work guy. But like, if I look at how I am at it now from the beginning, it's like the rest of comedy. It just takes time and commitment. So it's like you just gotta do it. You gotta go for it.
It's funny what you were saying, like that it's a secret weapon, because I do feel like there is a relationship with the performer and the audience where it's like, kind of okay, to kind of contradict a little bit what you were saying before about how like this is my time and they're gonna hear me, not that I wanted to like paint you in that light, but you know what I'm trying to say, to kind of contradict that a little bit. It's kind of like, but at the same time they need to receive something. So that's why, and I feel like it's the same with podcasting as well. I've noticed that like I take questions and answers sometimes, and like the listeners feel like it's a community. So that's why crowd work is so important, because it's like they don't feel like it's just you. Now we feel like it's all of us together having a good time, as opposed to just like that person. You know what I mean?
Right. Crowd work is what makes it different from like a play. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to the theater to see a play. You're going to see a real live person in the moment who knows what they're going to say. And yeah, when you interact with the crowd, if you're good at crowd work, or just good that night, or you get just one amazing joke through crowd work, like it changes everything. There's so many nights where it's like the best crowd work comedian is the best comedian.
Yeah, dude, some of the I literally like watch on YouTube like crowd work comedians. Like I'm like, oh, what did this one do with a heckler? What did this one? Bill Burr is so good with his hecklers. He's stuff amazing.
I get
like anxiety.
I get like nervous watching that stuff, because it's like I don't want to watch people be good at it on purpose, like because then I'll just be like, that's not me. I can't. I'm not. That
or like
good
makes
at
you
it.
insecure. Yeah. Do you have trouble watching comedy now that you're a comedian? Not like your friends, obviously, but do you have trouble watching like professional specials because you feel like a competition or something, or how does that work for you?
I wouldn't even say a competition. I definitely, the rate of stand-up I watch has gone down, and it's like a twofold reason. The first one is that, not competition per se, but it's either like, most of the time it's like, oh my God, this is so, like if someone has a special, right, they're probably really fucking good. So it's usually like, oh my God, this is so good. Why am I even trying this anymore? Every now and then you'll see a special and you'll be like, I could do that, and I hate thinking like that though, because I'm of the belief that anyone that has a special, like they put the work in.
They put the fucking work
grind
into
it.
Yeah.
So I try not to think that. But the other thing is that I watch stand up all the time. Like if I'm going out 4 or 5 nights a week, I'm watching at least 5 hours of comedy. You know what I'm saying? Like when I come home, that's the last thing I want to watch to relax. But also, like, I'm taking notes when I watch stand-up specials. Like, I'm too focused on like the setups, the punchlines. It makes me like really glad in a way, and no insult to you that I'm not a musician, because I almost feel like
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I'm like, man, should I have started doing comedy? Because I loved comedy, and now I see the same pattern happening that happened with music. So now when I listen to music, it's the same exact fucking thing. You can't listen to, I mean, there are some songs that I can just let go and like just give in emotionally, and then when that happens, it's amazing. But a lot of the times I'm like, what is that chord progression? What is she saying? Oh, she's doing this technique with her voice. It's like all analytical, or sometimes it could be critical. Sometimes it could be like negative criticism, or sometimes it's positive. Sometimes, and I'm sure it's the same with comedy. You're like, oh, he did that trick, and that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, for example, Louis C.K. does this trick. I don't know what they call it, but he like tells a joke, then he makes it seem like he's in a totally different bit, but it's still all one bit. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, he's writing on like a different level that, like, like sometimes like I'll watch guys or women and they're at such a level where I'm like, I just haven't even reached that level yet. Like, I don't understand the kind of kung fu they're doing, because I'm not a black belt, you know what I'm saying? I'm a blue belt or whatever. Like, so it's like Louis C.K. Dave Chappelle does some things where I'm like he'll just do a joke and like everything happens so quickly, and then the punchline comes and everyone's laughing, and I'm like, that was hilarious. I was so lost in it. I don't even know how he got there. I guess I'm just not there yet, you know? So
there's something in music called music theory, and it's like the study of breaking down scientifically like what music is. I never knew this, but apparently there's a thing called joke theory.
Sure. I mean,
Kyle Colorado told me about it. He's like, oh, joke theory. And he started reading about it. And it's like reading about these like specific techniques. I don't know what any of the techniques are. I would like to talk to him again and find out. But I do recognize certain things. I'm like, oh my God, what is he doing? And like, apparently there's like a whole theory of people that have like written books about it and like can like break down and label, like give everything a name kind of like type of thing.
Just even like the simple things like the misdirection, the callback, the rule of 3, things like that.
What's I don't even know what the rule of 3 is. What's the rule of 3?
I
don't know any of this shit.
When you like list examples, like you always stop at 3.
Oh,
like for some reason, there's just something about 3 examples that like they say, or so I've been told, that like that's that's what like a human can consume, you know, like two is not enough. 3 makes it real. 4 is too much information.
It's like the golden ratio or whatever.
Like,
they have all that shit in music too, like the golden ratio and like all that type of stuff. But yeah, totally, I can agree with that. It's like where musically I'm like, I listen to music so differently now, and it's same thing. Like when I'm on a long drive, I don't always listen to music because I'm like, I teach music, I study music. Like sometimes I just want silence. And then I'm just like, damn, I used to love comedy. And now I see the same exact thing happening where I'm just like, I mean, I do still watch specials. Like but similar things will happen. Like I'll watch it and I'll be just like amazed in a way like, oh my God, I could never do this.
Yeah.
Like I watched Eliza Schlesinger recently and I'm like, she's a beast. Like she's a fucking beast, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, yeah, it's like magic. It's like a magic trick, you know. And like I just can't imagine what it's like to be a magician and watch other magicians. You're just like, oh, I know how they did that. Like there's no more fun, you know what I'm saying? Like the smoke and mirrors is gone. I'm not saying like there's no joy in watching comedy. It's just like
there's no joy in life anymore.
You know, ignorance is bliss to a certain extent.
Is there anything that you find joy in? And not that's a weird question.
Drinking.
Is there anything you do that you don't care about the science of it, that you like sports? Is there something that you can like do? Fishing? That like
running? I run.
Running,
and,
yeah.
I run. I do like some other exercises too, but running, like I put no science into it. I go out
run
and I just run the distance I feel like running that day. I mean, like I'll measure it just for like posterity, like, oh, how many miles did I run this month? But I'm not like if I get in running conversations with other people, I don't. When people start talking about PRs and things like that, or like I ran marathons, I'm like, I'm just.
Do you do marathons in that, or you just run?
I've done a few half marathons, but a half marathon's like the kind of thing like as a runner, like if you run like 7 or 8 miles and you could do that like a few days in a row, or you know a few days over a couple weeks, I totally believe that you could run a half marathon. You don't really need the training that you do for a marathon. A marathon is consuming. It's like you got to put yourself on these programs, and it's almost like if you don't train like 2
it's like you won't even have time for your stand-up.
Yeah,
if you were to do
and it's
that.
just like I don't run for that. I don't run to be consumed by running. I almost run to like get away from everything else.
To like relax your brain.
Yeah, I do it for exercise. I do it for health reasons, but it's also like meditative and restorative for me. Like after a run, like if I'm having a bad day, like a run will fix me sometimes.
I'm really jealous of you because I wish I could run. For some reason I'm like, I like to exercise. I work out every day, but I can really only do like weightlifting type things.
Right.
I mean, I probably could run, but I'm so bad at it. For some reason, I'm just like not really built as well for cardio things. Like it's pathetic. Like I do try running, and the best I can do is like sprinting because like I get tired after like 20 seconds. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck people can do a marathon. It's like
especially like if you do weightlifting stuff, they say sprinting's actually better anyways. Whereas like cardio, you know, long running, which I do, is like can unfortunately be a wear and tear on your muscles. You know, like I'll do other stuff. I do like some weightlifting every now and then, and it's like it's good. It's a great release, I think. Like I love listening to like really angry music and messing with some weights. But like it's so mathematical to me. You're always counting, you know, you're always like paying attention. Whereas like,
you don't get that same like meditative thing.
Running, like you could just get lost in it, you know, lost in your thoughts, lost in whatever. You don't really have to think about there's nothing to count. You just keep going.
Maybe you should try it more. I get
maybe bike riding or something.
I do like riding my bike. That probably is my equivalent of that. Definitely, I love riding my bike. But
and there's just something else about the distance, putting the miles under your feet, just moving on the planet. I don't know. It just feels.
I know what you're saying. I feel the same way about biking too. It's like kind of abstract to even explain it. It's like you're seeing. Like almost like a bird's eye view of the world because you're going so fast. Yeah. Like you're just like seeing it in a different.
And you're like connecting with it. I feel like in a way.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you feel like kind of, you know, not to get weird, but you feel like kind of one with everything.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a oneness. I mean, I think maybe it's almost like maybe something inside of us like it harkens back to like an older time, caveman years or whatever, where we're like, this is what we were meant to do. Just, you know, travel the earth. And
so you're 40. Am I allowed to tell everybody how old you are?
I don't care. I'm 41.
You're 41. So you're kind of like on the border of social media, kind of like I was actually, because we were just talking about like nature and being one. I'm curious like what your relationship is like with social media. Like as a comic, do you keep up with it, or are you just like not into it? Like what's your deal?
I'm a Facebook addict and I hate it. I have like such a Facebook problem. Like that's my go-to. Like whenever I'm bored or if I have a moment, I'm like, what's going on Facebook? I only really got into Instagram like maybe a year or two ago.
I feel like everyone has their platform. For me, it's definitely Instagram. It must be like the age gap. I feel like
there is an aging, but I got to tell you, I mean, as a person who's did comedy, 10 years ago, or even like 5 years ago, Facebook was a way more active place for comedians than it is now. Like you can kind of like, if I just sit down and think about it, I'm like comedy's dead on Facebook compared to what it used to be. It's just, comedians are always cracking jokes on Facebook, and I barely see that anymore. It's mostly they go on there, they post something about a show, and then they're gone or whatever. Yeah. Or Facebook's now where people argue about politics too.
That's why I don't get into Facebook, because I feel like it's a lot of like my parents and their friends. As I love, they're probably gonna listen to this. I love my parents, but I don't mean like you guys in particular. I mean like your generation. Like a lot of them are like arguing politics and stuff like that. I like Instagram because it's just like photos of cool shit that people are doing.
I have a lot of members of my family. They're not on Instagram, and I kind of like Facebook to be able to see like pictures of like my cousins and their kids and my brother's kids, my nieces. So that's kind of cool. There is good stuff on Facebook, but I definitely wish it didn't have such a hold of me. Like I kind of wish I was way less on social media than I am. One
of my like New Year's goals or whatever was to try to like be on social media less. Didn't happen like at all. It's really hard,
especially like as a comic. It's hard. So now you're a comic and a musician. So I imagine there's things in comedy that I feel like it's necessary for me to be on social media. So now I feel like you have that twofold basically.
Yeah, but there's still things that I could just like not be on my phone for. Right. Like I feel like it's almost like an impulse, like an addiction.
It is.
Like no matter where I go and what I'm doing, I'm just like swiping, like just like tapping on my email, tapping on, like it's constant. I'm surprised. Like
it is addictive. I mean, what was that documentary about social media that came out on Netflix? But how like they purposely
on purpose,
like they hired people that worked in casinos that know how to make people really tap into the wiring of like a human brain and just get you constantly hooked on that dopamine of like, I got notifications, I got a message or whatever.
I just took my fucking nephew, he's 4, wait, how old is he? 6, not 4, he's like 6 or 7 now. I just took him to the arcade by Point Pleasant, like those things. Yeah. And I saw it in a whole new light. I'm like, holy shit, they're just training these kids to become gambling addicts. Because like the way like the casino, it's like a casino. The way the arcade is set up, it's like a casino for kids. Like it's like training them. Like we did that fucking claw machine. It's rigged. Like I was trying to get him this Super Mario thing, and like that thing is fucking rigged. Like there's no way you can get. They fuck with your emotions, because what they do is the claw wraps around the Mario head, and then as soon as it like releases its grip, the higher you get. So I feel like the only way to get the Mario is that if when it falls down, it would have to accidentally bounce on something and bounce into the hole. There's no way that fucking thing is gonna make it all the way. And
you need a lucky bounce, basically.
You need like a lucky bounce. And I'm like in that casino, like there's kids around. I'm like fuck, like trying to get him that Mario, and like you just keep putting more money in, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I could just buy one on Amazon for like $5.
Yeah,
probably.
I just put $10 in this thing, and also like they know that kids want that toy or whatever. They're gonna ask whoever, their parents or whatever, for money until they can get it.
But it's that human instinct. We don't want to buy it off Amazon. We want to win it. It's like we were just saying about comedy. It's like you want that that feeling of overcoming something. Right. It's like it's like animalistic.
Yeah, it's not just a Super Mario plush. It's a trophy of your victory. Man over machine.
I mean, even like my cats, they need toys. Like they have everything. They don't need to hunt. They have everything they could possibly fucking want, and they can just chill. But they still choose to like run around the house and pretend to chase mice. Like so again, like we must have some type of like instinct that dates back to when we used to have to hunt or something, and we exercise it through toys and arcades and comedy, and like even fucking cats that exercise their instinct to like conquer.
Right.
You know? It's
yeah,
like
absolutely.
weird.
Yeah, we all need a release.
Yeah. I have some more questions for you.
Cool.
Let me see. I already asked you if you bombed. Oh, this is a question I wanted to ask you. Do you, as maybe not anymore, but when you first started comedy, did you find that you saw the an influence of another comedian coming out through your work, even if it was non-intentional? Like, did you ever like catch yourself like, oh shit, I just said this, like Louis C.K. would say this, or I just said this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I like probably like a few. When I first started, I wanted to be like a one-liner guy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be like Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
So like I would like tell jokes sometimes and just deliberately just kind of like impersonating like some kind of hybrid of those two.
Yeah.
And I had to stop doing that. Obviously.
So it was like kind of more intentional.
That
like,
was kind of intentional. I had like this phase when I first got into stand up. I was like I was really into Doug Stanhope. I'm still really into Doug Stanhope, but like I just got into Doug Stanhope as I was beginning stand-up comedy, and I was like, this guy's amazing.
He's like the wild one who smokes, right? Is that Doug Stanhope?
Yeah. He's getting a little more mellow now. He's like in his 50s. He's still a wild one, though, I guess, for that. But I just noticed that, like, you know, some of my mannerisms or the way I would say things, I would hear something in a recording. I'd be like, that's Stanhope, man. You gotta get rid of that, you know?
I guess that's what I'm like wondering, because I feel like you would have to, because the same thing happens in music where it's like, as a singer, I'm always like singing like Amy Winehouse, even if I don't do it on purpose. Right. It's because I listen to her so much that her vocal style just gets like part of my vocal style. And I'm like, so like coming from music to comedy, I'm like curious. I'm like, am I gonna find myself copying a comic, like, and I don't even know I'm doing it? Like, I'm probably doing it already and I don't even know which one it is yet. You know what I mean? Like, is it just listening to certain people over and over, it just gets in your subconscious? It's kind of like you talk like your parents, like, you know what I mean? You're raised by your parents, you talk like them. Like, I'm just like wondering, like, who am I copying? Because I know I didn't just birth myself as a comic from nothing. Like, I've had to have some type of influence, you know? I also think that it's not like anybody goes on stage and they're a unique voice. Like, we're all derivative of something. And the same thing with music or any art form, really. It's all, you know, the generation before always has an impact on what comes next. So I think it's like impossible to not have some of your influences come out through whatever your art may be, really. Mm-hmm. But you know, I guess that, you know, when you listen back or whatever, you just try your best to. I don't want to sound like that guy anymore. I guess for me, it would be harder to be influenced because there's far less female, like famous female comedians. I mean, I guess I could imitate a male comedian. I mean, that's possible as well. But I feel like for me, because there's far less like famous female comics, if I was to copy one, it would probably be easier for me to like narrow it down who it is. I probably copy Whitney Cummings a little bit, not so much her comedy, but maybe her like podcasting style. And I know for a fact that I have like a little Joe Rogan podcasting style as well, because I'm so influenced by his podcasting, and I've had people like point it out to me. They're like, oh, this episode reminded me of like Joe Rogan a little bit. And I'm like, damn it, I'm not trying to like be just like him, but I'm definitely influenced because of just how much I've listened to him, you know? Yeah,
I mean, it's just, there's no way to completely stop that 100%, I don't think. However, you haven't asked me if I've done DMT yet, so maybe that's still in the questions. I don't know. So you're not totally Joe Roganing it.
That's true. I you know what, where I feel like I connect with Joe Rogan is I feel like I'm the Renaissance type. Like, you know how he's like doing jiu-jitsu and doing this and doing that. I'm the same way. Like, I bounce around from things. Not like, I don't want to say bounce around because it makes me feel like I'm uncommitted, but like I get really into something to the point where I'm just like, I can't learn new things. And that's something Joe Rogan has said a lot. And that's like something I can relate to from him, which is like, I think why I like him so much, because I'm like, oh, I get this. Like, because that's how I am too. I'm like, oh, I love music, I love comedy, I love foreign languages. Like, I was learning Spanish and Italian, and now I'm just like, I can't learn anything else because I can't put it away. I get like addicted to things, you know what I mean? So I'm just like done, like zero. Like, people are like, what's your bucket list? I'm like, none. I don't have one. Like, I just want to work with the things I have, you know? So that's my thing, I guess. Oh, heckler. Did you ever have a horrible heckler who made you upset or fucked up your show?
Yeah,
besides the Russian people. Have you ever had like...
Besides the guy who told me to shut up so they could do a shot of vodka together.
Have you ever had someone like pick on you like while you're doing a performance or like try to talk shit to you?
Yeah, oh God, I mean, there's been so many. Especially like bar shows, right? Especially like when sports is going on or whatever. I mean, like I've had people just playing out, tell me to shut up or whatever. I've been told that I look homeless, I'm not funny. They all blur together, right? Like I just like there's all these hecklers in my history, and I'm just like I blur them all together into one terrible monster.
So does that stuff upset you, or you just like let it slide?
I think there's like two types of hecklers, like and I think like a lot of comedians don't want to like admit to that, but I feel like there is the heckler who's trying to help, and I feel like that heckler does mean well usually, but like. And you can almost give them like a little more slack, but not too much more, because they'll get comfortable and think they're your buddy.
They're like part of the show. Yeah.
They think it's a podcast and they're the co-host all of a sudden, So like at some point you got to shut that down. But like it's the mean hecklers, the mean-spirited ones that just come from a place of like
they want
either they think they're funnier than you, or they want to show off in front of their friends or something. And those are the ones where it's like I hate them, but also like you gotta shut them down.
You gotta have them right
as soon as possible.
I feel like that goes hand in hand with crowd work, and I'm like, I've only had one heckler so far, and I was just like stumped. And then later I was like, why was I so stumped? I said a joke about like women watching porn or something, or like what a woman's perspective is on watching porn, and some guy in the audience just goes, only whores watch porn. And I was like, it wasn't like, but I didn't know, like, I was like, okay, that was a great opportunity for me to interact with that guy. And I had like nothing to say. I was just like, I just like carried on with my joke. I was just like, I feel like an idiot. You know what I mean? And like, it's such a valuable part of being a comic, I think, is being able to like interact with those people and make it like part of the show.
Yeah. And it's tough because like at a certain point you got to be like, I know everybody else heard that too, so now it's like I gotta
now it's awkward
I gotta acknowledge it, but also when someone's heckling, especially like the first time, I feel like 95% of the time the room is on your side. So like if you shut them down immediately, the room is just gonna cheer
like,
or laugh or and then that dude is just shut down.
But I feel like it takes a certain level of brilliance to be witty enough to come up with a joke on the spot. That's what kills me about it, is like all my jokes are premeditated. They're written.
Yeah.
I think once in a while I've come up with jokes on the spot, like because something in the room was funny, but just that sudden, it's like, dude, you have to be pretty brilliant to like just suddenly like come up with a joke. Like it doesn't have to be a joke, but like a sly comment or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like,
tough. Yeah, I mean, it's because you don't plan for it. It's not fair, Like it's like, oh, I didn't sign up for this.
But it like truly tests you. Yeah. Like it truly tests your skills and abilities.
You were just supposed to sit there and listen to my jokes, and if you don't like it, just politely not laugh. But
I do get the nice heckler that you're talking about, the one who like fucks up your punchlines because they hear something in the like, okay, one time I was doing a joke about buying a knife, because this is actually a true story. Somebody tried to break in my house, and I was making a joke about like how funny it is to actually buy a knife for the first time because you don't know how to like ask for it or whatever. And like the guy in the audience was like answering me. He was like, oh, well, I'll tell you how to buy the knife. And I'm like, I'm not actually asking for help. I'm setting up my punchline and you just ruined it. Like, so there's like some people like that who like you said, are like nice hecklers. Like they think they're being your friend or something.
Right. Like they're going to leave and be like, that's my new friend. I'm going to go Facebook friend request them.
Yeah. And I'm just like, ugh, like you're a nice person. But that's the other thing too. Like you kind of, as a comic, have to be okay with being savage sometimes and like being mean to people.
Yeah. That's the time, But they're being mean to you first, So even if they think they're helping, it's a mean thing to do to somebody, to interrupt their performance.
To like interrupt,
So anything you do back to them, that's a retaliation. You're not starting that. That's they had it coming.
Another question I have for you. So since you started comedy later, I'm kind of curious to know if you ever had like any career visions like before comedy. Like was there anything that you were like, I'm gonna be this, or like even if it was like a boring kind of like thing, like was there or like another dream path, like what were some of your thoughts before you became a comedian, like what you wanted to do?
Like I don't know, like in my younger 20s I was reckless. I was just like, all I need is a job and hang out with my friends. And I was partying a lot, hanging out a lot. And you do that for a bunch of years. And then the next thing you know, you're like 26 and 27, and you're like, man, I just partied almost most of my 20s away. Like, this is the decade I was supposed to like do something, choose a direction. I didn't have anything. So, you know, maybe stand up was that to some degree. I mean, before that, you know, it was the improv thing. I obviously had an itch, but before that, I wasn't very career oriented.
Really have anything. Yeah.
No, I was kind of like nihilistic about all that stuff. Like, I'm like, careers are for morons or whatever. Like, I'm too cool for a career, which is a really jaded opinion to have. But I mean, that's who I was then. So I kind of just like drifted through life. I never really had a solid goal before comedy.
So kind of in a way, this was like your goal because before that, you just didn't have any goals at all.
Yeah. My mom will be thrilled with this one.
So I mean, I don't know what we're allowed to or not allowed to talk about on this podcast, but so we can edit this out if this is uncomfortable. But you had some like drug issues before you became a comedian?
No, I don't know. Like, I experimented with some things. I never really thought I ever had much of a drug problem. I had a fun cocaine phase. I thought, if you're going to have a cocaine phase, if you're going to do it, I feel like the lower 20s is a good time to get it out of your system. I hung out with a lot of people that were doing it all the time. Yeah. A couple of my friends would get into dealing it on and off. And it just became this thing where, like, if I hung out, I wasn't even paying for it. It was for free all the time. Like, it was just somebody would always show up to a party I was at or a hangout I was at, and that was it. They'd be like, "Here, Josh, have some."
When I was in high school, my friends did a lot of different things. I mean, heroin, cocaine, crack, like they did it all. When I was like pretty young too, like 16, 15 years old. I never tried any of the really hard stuff, but I have tried cocaine before at that time. And I guess I'm like one of the lucky ones that just like didn't get addicted to it, which is weird because I have like very addictive tendencies.
Right.
But I have like I guess I have like a weird thing where I could pick up a pack of cigarettes, smoke all of them in one day, and then put them away for like a year.
Yeah,
I just have like
I couldn't. I smoked for like 10 years, and if I smoked a cigarette right now, I'd probably
you'd be done.
Dive back into the
deep I've never
end.
seen you smoking cigarettes before.
No, I quit at 26. Once again, it's one of those things. Like, there's this thing like around 26 and 27 in my life where I was like,
you like figured
time to start doing some things. You know, are you really gonna smoke cigarettes for the rest of your life? Like, I kind of had that epiphany. And the cocaine thing was kind of similar. I got kind of lucky. A couple, well, I shouldn't say lucky. A couple of my friends got really messed up on cocaine, so I got to see it firsthand. Be like, man, I don't want to be that, you know. And it got to a point. I was like the first of a lot of my friends to get an apartment, so people would come over. My place is Party Central for a while, so I was getting a lot of free stuff that way. Sooner or later, my friends caught up. They'd start moving out, and like it wasn't free anymore. People were like, "Hey, if you want to do this, you got to go half." And I would just be like, "Nah," you know, like I just had no interest. It was like so easy. It
was like something that came to you for free, but then when you had the opportunity to pay for it, you're like, "Oh no, fuck this."
Yeah, it's like almost like I'd been conditioned.
Do you smoke weed at all?
No, well, okay, at all. I do.
You like hit it once in a while, but you're not like a stoner.
I used to be a big pothead when I was a teenager, especially. And then at some point it started giving me anxiety. So like I cut down on it. And I like do this thing like every like 4 to 6 months where I'll try it again. I'll be like, hey, maybe I'm okay now. Maybe I can smoke it. And then I'll smoke and I'm like, nope, that's why I quit. Like
me too. Yeah. I'm exactly the same way. Like we're the same that way. I used to smoke it when I was in high school with that same group of friends. I think I always got anxiety, but at that age there was like less to worry about. Like you didn't have a car or a house, or like you just were anxious. You were anxious anyways. You're a teenager. So I did it then. Then my little brother was born. So my mom had a baby and he was 15 years younger than me. So I took I took the role as like a caretaker for him. Like I was like very much involved in taking care of him. So when he was born, I just like stopped all that stuff. I stopped hanging around that group of friends. I stopped smoking because I was like, it just felt weird. Like a newborn baby's born and I'm high. Like it just like felt like an uncomfortable combination. Like I was just like, I think I was actually like high when he was born,
Right.
and I was just like, this is wrong. Like, and I just, so I quit smoking and all that stuff, and I just kind of like let go of that group of friends. And then same exact thing. Like now that I'm an adult, you know, weed is like all the thing now. Like everyone's a stoner now. So I see people smoking and it looks like they're having fun. And I'm always like, let me try that.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. It's like maybe not for me every 6 months, like once a year. I'm like, I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to smoke. And then I have like a panic attack, especially if there's other people there.
Yeah,
like,
I'm kind of the same way.
Like if it's just me by myself, I'd probably be okay because it's just me. But like, there's no way I'd be able to drive or walk or hang out with people. I just get like really into my own head.
Yeah, I'm like a turtle. Like I'm in my shell, and it's hard to get me out once I'm in there.
And I'd be thinking like the weirdest things. Like I'll be like this will be like what goes on in my head. I'll be like, can he hear? Like I'll be like, can he hear my thoughts right now?
Right,
like I'll be like,
right.
just like the weirdest thing, or like it's just intense. Like I'm already anxious already. Like I don't need something to enhance my anxiety. Like they're like, it enhances your senses and your anxiety. I'm like, I'm already fucking crazy. Like I don't need to like hear the floor in like a different way. Like I don't know, I can't explain it. It's like it's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And especially the part where like being around other people and seeing them have fun with it, it's so casual. And I'm like, man, look at everybody else just be all casual with it, you know?
You
why
feel
not
like jealous.
me?
Like
Yeah.
you're like, I want to do that, you know?
And like I'm certain that it's not bad for them. They're they're having a good time, and it's like it's I feel like pot's probably less harmful than alcohol pound for pound, but it's just with me it just doesn't work.
Unless you get the munchies, then you make some bad like eating decisions. But
Yeah.
no, drinking is definitely a better drug for me. Like it loosens me up, it makes me more social, but then you have the fucking hangover the next day.
Yeah.
Probably if you smoke weed, you don't really get, I mean maybe you do, but not a hangover, but you might be like kind of groggy the next day, but you still don't get that like pain.
Yeah,
you know
not
what I mean?
like the hangover's the worst. It's just it's cliche, but you get the hangover and everyone's like, I'm never drinking again, and
then you drink again like the next day. I feel like that's something to watch out for as a comic. Like you're constantly at bars, so it's like you have to be really careful. I don't know how some of these drug addicts and ex-alcoholics are able to do it. Like there's like Tim Rager was telling me his story on the podcast, like how he used to do drugs and drink, and I'm like, how do you go to bars every day and just have a Coca-Cola? Like I don't understand how you do it. Like, but I guess you just develop like a certain.
Yeah, and there's like I'm friends with like a few people that are in recovery and doing comedy, and I see them in bars all the time, and I'm impressed by it. If I saw them ordering an alcoholic beverage, I would definitely be like, hey, what are you doing? I
guess that's another thing. Like there's other people there to like hold them accountable, sort of thing.
You hope, right?
Unless
like,
they want to lure them in, but I doubt it. I feel like, I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
But also maybe being around a bunch of drunk comics is motivation to not drink.
Oh yeah, because
look at these assholes.
You're sober and you see what they're actually. Yeah, I see that too. Like even when I see them stoned, I'm like, how do they perform like that? But they do.
Yeah.
Like I just don't get it. I would never be able to perform.
Sometimes I want to do a Mike Stone just to say I did it,
just to see what it's like.
It's probably a nightmare. It would probably be the worst. It would probably be
I should do it at the same time.
It would probably be like year one Josh again.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I should do it at the same time, so we like have that understanding. Like, are you fucking acting weird right now? Yeah, because I totally get in my own head, and I'm a lightweight too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
I mean, that could just be because we don't smoke, so like it takes a while.
Yeah, there's no tolerance built up.
Yeah. Okay, so looks like we've been going for an hour. That's usually how far I go on the Pranzata podcast, because I know in 2021 you guys have short attention spans. However, I do have one listener that asks for longer things, but we are going to call it a night tonight. I had a very fun time here with my guest, Josh Wells. Why don't you tell them where they can stalk you and murder you and that type of thing?
Yeah, come stalk me and murder me on Instagram and Twitter at Josh Ain't Funny. Follow my I have a newsletter. You know how everyone has a podcast? I have a newsletter like they used to do in
that's what happens when you're 41.
Yeah 41-year-olds, we're good at this. So follow my newsletter, joshwells.substack.com. It's awesome. I only send it out once a week. I won't over spam you or anything, I promise. I would appreciate that. And I think that's it. That's
Josh Wells, everybody. And don't forget, this is the Pranzata podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit like. If you're new to this channel, I should have said this in the beginning, but if you're still around at this point, if you're new to this channel, I interview comedians, musicians. Sometimes I do solo podcasts, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that's it. I had a good time, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.